a different frequency or vibration than you. You said they look like us, but they're not us. What is the not us aspect?
They're not from our bloodlines. They're not even from Earth. They're not native nowhere on Earth. They look like us, but they're not native to the planet at all.
Okay. So what is their origin?
They came with okay, so now we going back into ancient Babylon, into the arrival of the Anunnaki, right? Those who were organic to the earth, they were synced to the frequency of two of the Anunnaki, synced to the earth frequency. One was named Inanna, who we call Isis, Queen of Heaven and Earth, right? And it was Enki. Enki mean Lord of the Earth, Earth Lord, right? And then his half brother, which is Isis, Inanna's full brother, tried to pull rank and brought his children here, and they wasn't synced to the earth. Their genetics is kind of different than ours, right? And so this is what the story about the two brothers. It's always a sibling rivalry and everything. That's Enki in Enlil, everywhere you look.
Yeah. Hmm.
Enlil is who you call Yahweh in the Bible. He is the God of Jacob, but he's not the God of Esau, right? Now, Abraham had two sons. He had Esau and Jacob. He had Ishmael and Isaac,
Yeah.
right? And then Isaac had two sons, which was Esau and Jacob.
So, hmm.
All right. Now, Isaac was going blind. So when he came time for him to cross over, he gave his birthright to Esau because Esau was the rightful heir. But something happened. Esau
Yeah.
and Jacob's mother dressed Esau up like he was Jacob. Jacob was from Enlil line. Enki is, Esau is from Enki line. Okay, so now she didn't want the earthborn to receive the birthright. She wanted the skywalkers, the ones who travel from galaxy to galaxy with no place to steal the birthright, so they'll have a homeland so they can stop being drifters through galaxies. So they settled on Earth, and this is the stories to keep the sibling rivalries conscious in our mind. It comes up in all of the stories. That's because Big Mama gonna keep bringing it up until one of us figure it out. Okay, now in the New Testament, it play out as Judas and Jesus, right? But what they're not telling you is they fraternal twins, and Jesus is Isis, and Isis is a female, right? Now, all of the words of the red is not one person; it's two people. Because
Interesting.
everywhere she went, she took her son with her. He was Mama's right hand man. The story of Isis and Horus. It's in the Ananuan hieroglyphics now. You see how the information is broke down into pieces. This piece in this language and this culture go with this piece. This piece in this language and this culture go with that piece. So now you jumping all over the place trying to put the puzzle together. Right? Now this is called the game of the gods. In the game of the gods, it's only one of the gods that was never allowed to play. In Norse mythology, they call him Loki. In China, they call him the Monkey King, Sun Wukong. In India, he's Ram in the Ramayana, the exiled priest, which was the prince, heir to the throne. And when you get in the Middle East, he Nimrod. When you get over here, he Quetzalcoatl. Right? So when you put them all together, you were like, wait a minute, all of it, these are Thoth incarnations. Because they all got Thoth symbol. Right? And the symbol is always the same. The Monkey King with the band on his head because they wanted to restrict his mind power, but they couldn't restrict him. In the Middle East, they say Nimrod was the only mortal that the gods feared. Right? So when you go through the Egyptian stories, you'll find that the king of the gods, Anu, was only beholden to one, which was called the earth god, which was Thoth. Right? So he is the one who's made all of this shit. All of them start, y'all got to fix this shit. The problem came in a little over 15,000 years ago with the last of the Anunnaki Wars, or what they call in India the Brahmanas Wars. During the Brahmanas Wars, Thoth was like, fuck this bullshit, get these motherfuckers out of here if I have to tear it all up. And he hit the planet with something called the Planet Destroyer. The Gandiva is what it's called in Hindi. Right? It's a planet annihilator weapon. It's a nuclear bomb of massive proportions. But it was to get rid of the parasite. So when you read in the Emerald Tablets, he say, well, I had got rid of the Dark Brothers, but the priests brought them back down here. Right? What is he talking about? Because originally, when Atlantis fell, the great Atlan, which was part of the ancient Tartarian civilization, it was the capital. That was over here. So when that land fall, it was a war then that caused the fall. They didn't just fall, but this war involved people from other planets in the solar system, is why some of them is totally annihilated. Like Mars. Mars was a bustling planet with an atmosphere similar to Earth. It just never got cold on Mars. You got to be able to live in sub-Saharan Africa with no cover to survive on ancient Mars. Right? Because the atmosphere is different. The humidity was different. Right? And you got darker tans on Mars than you did on Earth. Right? So the history of the universe becomes the history of the planet replayed out in smaller yet smaller cycles until it's played out in family dynamics. Until one of us figure out how to fix the problem. Right? And then you start seeing where all of this stuff fit in the grand scheme, what they call the great work. Did making any sense to you at all? You familiar with any of this?
I'm definitely digesting it. I got a ton of questions, man. So bear with me. So earlier you mentioned that Earth is used as like a training ground for the gods, so to speak.
It's a
To
university.
kind of,
University Earth is what it
university, as
was.
you stated.
So
Yeah.
look, when Enlil and his kids came, it was the equivalent of the kids coming from the school for the derelicts. And they, all of them high schoolers, and they come to a junior high school, all of these high school derelicts, because they school closed down. Now they got to come to our school. Right? And they don't play by our rules. They don't give a fuck about our rules. They want to do a shit the way they want to do it. And every time they do, they fuck some shit up. This is why all the water poisoned and all the dirt getting poisoned and the air getting poisoned from them. They just fuck shit up. They don't have no regard for the order of righteousness. So they the guys who believe only what they want is the only thing that matters. They feel entitled and deserving even if they don't do the work in a deserving manner. We the ones that say we don't want it if we don't earn it. I don't want to suck and leech off nobody. I want to get up and go get it like a man.
Right.
They don't want to do that. They want you to go get it like a man and then give it to them. Right? You see it play out in the family. You got family members that think just because they related to you that you owe them something. Motherfuckers you probably ain't never seen let you hit the lottery. They gonna come out the woodworks.
Right.
Right? Why is they coming out with the hand out? Because they feel like because y'all related, you owe them something. Where we don't get on like that. We feel like because we related, nigga, teach me what you know so I can do it myself. That's how we get on.
Right.
They don't get on like that. They don't want to learn how to do it. They want you to do it for them and give you the reward. That's why we in slavery. That's the whole concept of slavery comes from that shit. So when you training guys how to live with a noble character, then I guess you only as great as your adversary. And that's why they say to respect your enemy, not love your enemy. That's the translation. You're supposed to respect your enemy. Because only if he is capable of doing what you're capable of doing can he be truly classified as your enemy. Otherwise, he's just a speed bump. But if he can get out there like you do, work his fingers to the bone the same way you do, right? But he want to undercut you. He don't want you to do it. Then you have to be concerned about that. Because now you have one that's entitled that feel like that he don't want you to work for your own shit. And he cut your legs from under you to interrupt your progress. So you got to always be vigilant, and you can't tell who they is by skin color. You only can tell who they is by attitude and energy.
Yeah.
You know, it's a certain way we move. We step in love first. They step in selfishness first. They ego driven. We drive our ego. Right? So our elders taught us to refine the ego so that your higher self can be more present. Their elders taught them to embellish the ego, and the ego will supply all your hedonistic desires. And some of them is at the expense of us.
Okay. Take you a different direction. I came into some information that stated that the original language of man was Paleo Hebrew.
No, that's
Uh,
bullshit. We
no?
originally spoke telepathy, first and foremost.
Okay.
We originally didn't use written words. That's Enlil and them shit. We used written symbols, but we didn't use written words. The words is breakdowns of symbols. It's
Okay.
a conjure. Every word, every letter in the alphabet had to be created by magicians to charge the alphabet individually, letter by letter. When you know how it's done, then it nullifies the effect that it has on you.
Interesting.
Because now you know what's driving behind it. It can't control you because you understand it. As long as you don't understand it, you're subject to it. In the God mind, you are inquisitive of everything that tries to control you. You want to know the nature of it.
Right.
And this is how you discover your true adversaries. Studying the nature of things is studying the netter or the God behind it. And once you realize the patterns become redundant, the MO is the same. It doesn't change, haven't changed since when you read in Anunnaki tablets about Enlil's character, personality, and disposition, and you read about the disposition, character, and personality, the ones running this world, it's going to be the same characteristics, the same traits. When you read about Inky's personality and character, he was a fucking horn dog lover. We call them players who like to dress fancy and please the girls. That's all he wanted to do. and he was a hard worker so that he can facilitate those needs, right? And Inanna, she just wanted everybody to love everybody. She wanted them sisters. Can't we just love each other? And this is how we get into shit with her and her extra love shit, and inviting her brother, half fag ass down here. Right? So the last time he made himself physically seen was in Africa, in Kenya. He came and told him that he was Maitreya. But it's a pattern that tells you who he is. And the pattern is they got to always honor a lady that they call Mary. Hail Mary, Mother of God, right?
Yeah.
What the fuck that mean? Hail Mary, Mother of God. What the fuck that mean? How's she the mother of God?
Right.
She must have been God first. Right? But what do Mary mean? Rebellious woman. So the stanza properly quoted is, to hell with you, rebellious woman, mother of God.
Oh wow.
It's the assassination of the divine feminine, the great mother. This is why we've been under a patriarchal homosexual system that exploits children. That's in Leo. It's in his character.
Wow.
It's always been in his character all the way back to the Sumerian tablets. He show up as Set in Egypt. He want to challenge Osiris for the throne. Who the fuck is Osiris? Lord of the perfect black. What the fuck is that shit? The only place where you find the perfect black is in deep space. So the Lord of the perfect black has to come from deep space. So we look up, we see him as represented as the Orianos, the Orient side. So now it's telling us, study the stars now. Why in the fuck we need to study the stars? What that shit got to do with Earth? Because the nature is following the reverse flip in real time of what's taking place in the stars. We trying to alter that shit, but we trying to stop we trying to hold back a tidal wave with our bare hands. That's it, nothing else. This shit can't be stopped. And as long as we each continue to teach until we start reaching more and more of us, that's when we see how big this shit really is. This shit is over with, dog. When the Anunnaki come, they come in to get Enlil's children and take them off world because they don't belong here in the first place. Right? This is what they coming for. They're not taking everybody from here because everybody ain't supposed to leave. But once they take everybody from here, the energy not going to be the same. Because then the Sibyls will be back functioning as a Tesla unit, what they call them, Tesla coils around the Earth. In some shit, and the frequency vibration, 444, the angel frequency of the women, in the 432 of the Earth is going to mellow out at a cool 440. It's the balance between the humans walking the Earth in love and the Earth vibrating to match the frequency. So now we gonna get some frequency called an A-tone. Right? And an A-tone can be found on the musical scale. In Arabic, it's called the aint. Right? So then you learn and you practice pronouncing the aint. And then you match the frequency to the 444. And then you bounce it off the 432, you end up at 440. That's because of the what they call it, the displacement of energy. right? Because energy doesn't burn fluid and clean until it's at a perfect balance, right? And between 432 and 440 is 8, and 8 is the number for a queen,
Okay.
right? The symbol is the bee. That's why 8, a bee, and the queen, and the bumblebee all look alike, right? So to see the queen between 832 and 444, she land on the 440, and the 44 is an angel number. So she becomes the earth angel, the angel of the earth. These are the daughters of Isis, right? And when you understand who all of the daughters of Isis was in history, then you get to understand that the Jesus story is about Cleopatra. And the part they don't want you to know is that she had a son because he was the rightful heir. But Cleopatra disappeared under the Roman onslaught. She dipped. Where'd she go? They ain't got her tomb. They don't know where she buried at. But they know where Mark Antony is buried at. Right? They know where Antonio is buried at. Whatever the fuck his name was. Right? They know where they buried at, but they can't, and they say she committed suicide with an adder in her bed chamber. In other words, she went in her bedroom, laid down, and let a snake bite her. Right? So the snake bite represents 2 puncture wounds. Where did that come in familiar at? A vampire, right?
Yeah.
And another name for a vampire is lichen, right? That's because they like kin, but they ain't kin.
Oh wow.
And they call us the werewolves, right? Because we used to wear the fucking wolves as cloaks when we go hunting in our hunting parties. Find it anywhere in the world and tell me where you find it at. Look anywhere on the planet and say, where do you find people that wore the wolves?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be right over here. Right? So
Okay.
you got all these
Yeah.
motherfuckers telling us these bits and pieces of these different stories, but we confused. Because they take 2 compound words, put them together, make it into one word to confuse the mind. But when you understand how the mind works, it's going to put everything in the order it go because the brain is the foundation for the computer.
Right. Okay. So 2 more things, if you could break down for me. You mentioned the Tartarian Empire,
Mm-hmm.
and in a video I was watching the other day, you mentioned mud floods, or the young lady you were speaking with mentioned mud floods. As far as like resets and things of that nature, uh, can you kind of expound on that just a little bit? Like
Yeah,
the
so
technology that.
the technology was global. None of this shit is new. Cell phones ain't new. We just remembered how to put them together and then they gave the credit to somebody else. Right? So remember, we recycle souls. We've been here before, we'll be back. Right? So all of the stuff that we ever did, we still can do. We just got to be able to remember what we ever did. This is why they cut you off from the history, because if they cut you off from the history, you can't remember which one of the gods you was. Therefore, you don't know what your power is. And if you don't know what your power is, you can't use no power. It's the rule of the universe, because in order to maintain order, you got to have a cap on anything that's out of control. So the chaos being got to learn how to control his own inner chaos. This is why most of us go crazy in the waking up process. Because we lose track of the fact that we're supposed to go through the chaos and we're supposed to not take sides with the information, because that's how you get confused and driven to insanity. Only if
Okay,
you
so
take,
explain the waking up process and the chaos, like in detail.
it's like doing shadow work, right? In doing shadow work, you confronting the darkest parts of your own self, right? And you're using everybody you encounter as your mirror to look at what you ain't doing. Right? So you need to find out where you weak at, where you strong at. Most people can't take critical analysis because if anybody else analyzes and they have a full-fledged breakdown, that's how you know they never analyze themselves. But the person that analyzes himself before he get offended, he say for a minute, like, did I ever ask myself, do I do that? Yeah, I did. I don't do that. No, you got me fucked up. Now he can't even get mad because he's informed that he already been through that shit and you can't falsely accuse him. Right? This shadow work. Shadow work is confronting all that shit, your murderous tendencies. Right? You the same amount of dangerous, but now you even more dangerous because you got that shit under control. Right? So you went from being a broad spectrum light ray into a focused laser beam.
Yeah.
So all you doing is harnessing your own energy and getting rid of the shit that you don't want in your character, personality, and if you can't get rid of it, it's permanently part of you who you are. That's who you are. And if it's some rotten shit that you into, and you can't stop doing that rotten shit, that's because you was a rotten motherfucker in that area. You might be good in 99 other places, but this ain't one. You know what I mean? So you got to know your weaknesses as well as your strengths. Right? Some of us avoid pedophilia not because we not pedophiles. Some of us avoid pedophilia because we don't want the public stigma. Long as you keep your ass away from my kids, you all right. Right? But the ones who don't care about the stigma continue to molest children. And the ones of us that don't believe in that shit continue to want to bust their head. Right? So now I'm stuck in the dynamic of bust his head. But do I think I'm better than him? Because I'm better in that aspect. But that motherfucker might go feed a motherfucker that I wouldn't throw a motherfucking rock in their direction in order to feed him. You know what I mean? So doing the shadow work, you got to come to terms with all that shit. Am I cool with if I got to kill everybody in the house and somebody in the house is 5 years old? You know what I'm saying? Some of us can't do it. But some of us can kill everybody in the goddamn house.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But if you don't know which one of them motherfuckers you is until you put in that position, then you can't say who another motherfucker ain't. Because you haven't done that shadow work in that area. You haven't confronted that darkest side of yourself. Most
That's
niggas is tender
interesting.
dick.
Say
Look,
that one more time.
most niggas is tender dick. Right? They talk all that gangster ass shit. And then they resort to domestic violence because they can't control the emotions that come from having a penis stroked. That's shadow work too. That's shadow work too. Right? It don't mean you got to be celibate your whole life, but you got to have some type of self-control about your sexuality. And you got to face that. Right? You have to come to terms to what you like, not what I told you to like. What are you naturally attracted to without nobody telling you it's attractive? Right? And 9 out of 10, that's not going to even matter in the end, because when you find the one that they call your twin flame, it's going to be looking for love in all the wrong places and finding it where you did never think it to be, in the person that you never expected it would come. Right? And this is the shit this is why love makes no mental sense. Right? But when you learn to sync your mental senses to understand your love responses, this self-control at the highest levels.
Okay. One thing that you just you mentioned a few minutes ago, you said that we're recycled souls, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
we've been here before and we'll be back, right?
Yeah.
So, just my view on this particular system, like there's a lot of fucked up shit that happens, right? And I don't, I agree with you. You know, we've been here, recycled souls, but is there a point of elevation to where you graduate from this university and move on to God
Most of us,
status?
most of us come back because we choose to help train newer souls. The ones of us who don't want to come back, they don't come back. But they gotta aid before you can leave permanently. You got to aid in the restoration of your family tree. You can't leave your bloodline lacking from your lack of work. So if you don't want to come back, you gotta train one of the members of your family, either physically or spiritually, how to be a successful replacement for you. It's the job that you gotta always train your replacement to be more successful than you was. Right? And then that makes the bloodline always and beholding to your honor and your respect. Why? Because the student can never outshine the master. And if you raise one that is strong enough mentally, emotionally to withstand the onslaught of the world, to clean up the family tree by becoming the best product of the family, the golden apple, so to speak. Then when you leave in high honors. It's like graduating cum laude, right? You the one. You did your job for your family, and then you don't have to come back. But most of us are here as instructors, trainers, teachers, right? And we let the students fuck everything up trying to figure it out. Then we come back and we tell them how to figure it out.
So, is there a way? Like, how do you get in tune with your past life, and as far as like the regression of those memories and understanding what your original purpose was, so to speak, and making sure that your current path is in alignment with that graduation, so to speak.
Your original